AITA for cutting my sister out of my life after she insulted my fiancé and ruined our wedding. I, 29F, have always been close with my sister, Kayla, 27F. We've been through a lot together, especially since we lost our parents when we were teenagers. For years, Kayla and I were the only family we had left, and we leaned on each other a lot. I've always been the more reserved and responsible one, while Kayla is the free spirit, but we complemented each other well. When I met my fiancé, Ben, 31M, about 3 years ago, I was hesitant to introduce him to my family right away. Ben's a little different from the guys I usually dated. He's calm, intellectual, and can be a bit introverted. He's not into partying or big social scenes, and he's the type to stay in and read a book on a Friday night. I was always a bit worried that my family might judge him for not fitting their idea of fun or exciting, especially since my sister tends to be the life of the party. When I did finally introduce Ben to Kayla and the rest of the family, she was polite, but I could tell she didn't really take to him. She made a few comments about how boring he seemed and how he wasn't her type, as if I asked her for advice on my romantic life. But I didn't think much of it at the time, and I chalked it up to her being Kayla. She's always been very outspoken and a little blunt. Fast forward to our engagement last year. Ben proposed to me at a small family gathering, and I was over the moon. It was a perfect moment, just the two of us, and I was so excited to start planning our future together. But from the moment I told Kayla about the engagement, things started to unravel. She didn't react the way I expected. Instead of being excited for me, she just kind of shrugged it off and said something like, "Well, I guess you're finally settling down." I was caught off guard, but I didn't make a big deal out of it. I told myself it was just Kayla being her usual self. However, as time went on, I started to notice small but hurtful comments about Ben. At a family dinner, she joked that Ben was too boring for her and that I was picking the safe option. She also made a joke about how I was choosing a guy who probably still listens to vinyl. Ben does collect vinyl records, but it wasn't the point. Every time I brought up wedding plans, she'd make little snide remarks like, "I thought you'd have a more fun wedding," or "I can't believe you're not going to have a crazy bachelorette party." I tried talking to her about how her comments were starting to hurt me, but she just laughed it off. She said I was being overly sensitive and that I shouldn't take everything so seriously. I wanted to believe her, but I just felt like she wasn't being supportive in the way that I needed her to be. She seemed more focused on the idea that my relationship with Ben wasn't exciting enough for her standards, and that started to create a rift between us. The final straw came when we were in the middle of planning the wedding. Kayla had agreed to be my maid of honor, but she was making it very clear that she wasn't happy about the whole thing. She would complain about the dress I picked, criticize the venue I had chosen, and even said that the entire concept of a classic wedding felt stale. I didn't mind her having opinions, but her comments started to feel like personal attacks on my relationship and the choices Ben and I were making together. Then, during my bridal shower, things took a very ugly turn. We were all sitting around chatting when Kayla suddenly made a comment that left me speechless. She turned to Ben and said, "I can't believe you're marrying her. I mean, she's always been a little uptight, right? It's like you're just in this for the stable, predictable life." She laughed, but the look on Ben's face was one of complete shock. My entire family went silent, and I could feel the tension in the air. I was absolutely mortified. Ben didn't say anything in that moment, but later, he told me he felt completely disrespected by Kayla's comment. He's never been one to confront people directly, but he did say that he was hurt by her blatant disregard for our relationship. I was furious. I had always had Kayla's back, but I was starting to realize that she had no respect for me or my choices. I confronted her that night, and we had a huge argument. She didn't apologize, though. Instead, she said that she was just being honest and that I was too sensitive. She even said I was overreacting and that she was only looking out for me. After that, I started distancing myself from Kayla. I told her that I couldn't continue having her in my life if she wasn't going to support me or my relationship. I also told her that I couldn't have her as my maid of honor anymore. It felt like a huge betrayal, but at that point, I knew it was the right decision for my mental health and for my relationship with Ben. I've been going back and forth about whether I did the right thing. I know Kayla is my sister, and family is supposed to come first, but I can't shake the feeling that she doesn't respect me. I want to have a healthy relationship with her, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my relationship with Ben for her. I've been told by some of my other family members that I'm being too harsh, that Kayla is just jealous of my relationship, or that I should let it go because she's family. So, AITA for cutting my sister out of my life after she insulted my fiancé and ruined our wedding? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she caused issues with my husband. So, here's the situation. I, 30F, have been married to my husband Chris, 32M, for 5 years, and we've built a pretty peaceful life together. We don't have kids, but we have a dog, and we're both busy with work. It's a comfortable life, and we've managed to carve out a routine that works for us. However, my younger sister, Lily, 26F, has caused some drama that's really shaken things up. Lily and I have always been close, but we're different in a lot of ways. She's more of a free spirit, lives for the moment, doesn't care much about stability, and has jumped from one random job to the next. I've always been the more responsible one, a planner, and I've been pretty successful in my career. Lily has never really managed to hold down a stable job or keep a steady living situation. She's gone through a lot of rough patches, which I've tried to support her through. But lately, things have been getting worse. A couple of months ago, Lily lost her job after a series of mistakes at work, and after that, couldn't afford to keep the apartment she was renting. She came to me for help and asked if she could move in with me and Chris until she got back on her feet. I agreed, even though I knew it would be an adjustment, and we made a plan. I told her she could stay for a few months, but she needed to help out around the house and contribute financially once she found another job. Chris wasn't thrilled about her moving in, but he didn't want to leave me to deal with it alone. He's always been respectful of my family, but this wasn't ideal for him, to say the least. We had a couple of conversations where he expressed his concerns. He wasn't thrilled about her not having a clear plan or her history of being irresponsible. I told him that I would talk to Lily and make sure she knew she had to pull her weight, and that I wouldn't let her freeload for long. The first few weeks weren't too bad. Lily seemed to be getting along okay with Chris, and she was actively looking for work. But then things started to slip. She began spending more time out with her friends than actually job hunting. I started noticing a pattern where she'd promise to help clean or cook, but then she'd be out all day and come home late, barely acknowledging the responsibilities she'd agreed to. Chris and I started having more arguments about it. I tried to talk to Lily, and she'd promised to do better, but nothing changed. One day, I came home from work early to find Lily had thrown a party at our place while we were both gone, inviting a bunch of her friends over. Our living room was trashed, and I could hear loud music playing from the driveway. I was furious. I told her that this was completely unacceptable and that she needed to be more respectful of our space. She didn't seem to understand the gravity of the situation and said I was overreacting. I was at my wit's end, and Chris was starting to lose his patience too. He expressed his frustration and said he felt like a guest in his own home, and that Lily's behavior was making our life together uncomfortable. After that, we had a serious conversation about how to move forward. I told Lily that she needed to either find a job and contribute or move out. She claimed she was trying, but every time I checked in, it was clear she wasn't. She wasn't looking hard enough for jobs, and she was still partying more than she was working on herself. Then, it all came to a head when Chris and I had an argument about something unrelated, and Lily got involved. She started taking sides, telling Chris that he needed to chill out and let things go, even though it wasn't her place. She essentially tried to tell my husband how to handle things in our marriage. Chris was incredibly upset about this. It felt like she was undermining our relationship, and I couldn't let it go. The next day, I sat down with Lily and told her that I couldn't keep enabling her to behave this way. I explained that she couldn't continue living with us unless she made some serious changes. She got really defensive and started crying, saying that I was abandoning her and that she had nowhere else to go. I told her that she wasn't being abandoned, but that we couldn't keep enabling her behavior. If she didn't start taking responsibility for her own life, she needed to leave. She was incredibly upset and left that afternoon. I honestly felt like I was doing the right thing by setting boundaries, but my family has been all over me about it. My parents called and said that I was being too harsh and that I should just let Lily stay with us until she figures things out. They said I was being selfish and that I didn't have enough empathy for her situation. They even suggested that I should make some sacrifices to help her out more. Chris, on the other hand, was completely supportive of me. He said that he's glad I stood my ground and that it was necessary for both our relationship and my sister's growth. But now, things are tense between me and my parents, and even some extended family members have weighed in, calling me unsympathetic and cold-hearted. I feel like I'm in the middle of a family feud, and I'm starting to second-guess whether I did the right thing. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after all the problems she caused? Or am I being too harsh? I know she's struggling, but at some point, I feel like I have to protect my own life and my marriage. AITA for telling my sister she ruined my wedding after she brought her baby without asking. My 28F wedding was last weekend, and I'm still reeling from the whole mess. I've tried to be as calm and reasonable as I can, but I'm honestly so upset that I don't even know if I'm in the wrong here. I've been trying to figure out, but I'm torn. Here's what happened. My wedding was supposed to be this big, elegant affair at a fancy venue. I've dreamed of this day my whole life, and after years of planning, everything was finally coming together. We had the dress, the venue, the photographer, the whole shebang. The one thing I specifically requested, though, was that no children under the age of 10 be invited. I wasn't being a bridezilla about it. It's just that we have a very small, formal venue, and I knew it would be a distraction if kids were running around. Plus, my husband 30M, and I have always wanted a kid-free wedding. I made sure this was clearly stated on the invitations. It was on the RSVP card, and I even sent out a follow-up email to the guests reminding them of the no kids policy. The only people exempted were a few babies under the age of 1, but they had to have a designated caregiver with them, and that was arranged in advance with the venue. My sister, Lily, 24F, has a 10-month-old baby, Liam. She's a single mom, so I get that she might find it tough to find childcare, but the policy was clear, and I made it clear to her too. When I told her about the no kids rule, she was disappointed, but said she'd figure something out. I assumed she would either get a babysitter or skip the wedding, which I totally understood if she felt uncomfortable leaving her baby. I honestly wouldn't have had a problem with her not coming. A few days before the wedding, I got a call from Lily asking if she could bring Liam. I was confused because I thought we'd already discussed this, but she said she hadn't been able to find a sitter and couldn't leave him with anyone else. I told her again that the policy was firm, and it was important to me that the day be about the guests who were there to celebrate with us without distractions. I even offered to help her with finding a sitter, but she said it wasn't working out. She seemed upset but agreed to come alone. I was relieved because I thought we had come to a mutual understanding. But then, on the day of the wedding, she showed up with Liam. Not only did she bring him, but she was also holding him in the ceremony photos, standing right beside me and my husband during some of the important shots. She didn't even try to take him out of the way when we were cutting the cake or during speeches. It was chaotic. At first, I thought maybe it was just a mistake, and she was planning to leave him with someone else or had changed her mind about the baby being there. But no, she kept him with her the entire time, even though I had made it very clear that there was a designated area for children who were accompanied by a sitter. I tried to stay calm and enjoy my day, but it was hard to ignore the fact that she was literally sitting front and center, not just breaking the rules but acting like it was no big deal. At one point, I overheard her complaining to someone about how hard it was to enjoy herself with the baby and how she hadn't had any help. Honestly, I felt like my wedding day was becoming a circus, and it was all because of her disregard for my wishes. During the reception, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled her aside and asked, "Why did you bring Liam? We agreed you wouldn't." She immediately got defensive, saying she didn't have anyone to watch him and that she had no choice. I told her that was not my problem, and she had made a choice to disrespect my wedding and make it all about her and her kid. She was visibly hurt and that's when she started tearing up, telling me that I was being cruel for not being understanding. She left not long after that. My family is split over this. My mom says I was too harsh on her, that I should have been more understanding of the fact that she has a baby and is struggling. My dad thinks I had every right to be upset, but he also thinks I should have just let it go and not said anything to her on the day of. Some of my friends are on my side, saying I had every right to keep my wedding kid-free. Others think I was just too rigid and that wedding should be about family, not about the rules. So, AITA for telling my sister she ruined my wedding after she brought her baby without asking? Should I have just let it go and enjoyed the day despite her not respecting my wishes? Or was I right to be upset? I feel like I'm stuck between wanting to enjoy my wedding and trying to keep the peace with my family. AITA for refusing to let my sister's son stay with me after he was kicked out of his mom's house. I, 31, have a sister, Emma, 29F, who is the mother of a 16-year-old boy, Lucas, 16M. To give some context, Emma and I have always had a complicated relationship. We grew up in a fairly toxic environment with our parents constantly fighting, drinking, and yelling. I was the older sibling, so I kind of became the default caretaker, making sure Emma was safe and out of trouble. She and I have always been a bit distant, but we still keep in touch for the sake of family. We aren't exactly close, but I try to be supportive of her when I can. Lucas is a good kid, or at least he tries to be. I know he's been through a lot because of Emma's sometimes chaotic parenting style. To be honest, Emma has always had a difficult time with responsibility. She's the type to make excuses for her actions or avoid difficult conversations altogether. She's also been a bit of a perfectionist with Lucas, and he get a lot of pressure from her to be the perfect child. From what I've gathered, Lucas has had issues with grades, respect, and behavior, and Emma has had a hard time handling him, especially since he's hit his teen years. The problem began last month when Emma called me and asked if Lucas could stay with me for a while. She told me that he was acting out and that she didn't know what to do with him anymore. She said he'd been skipping school, breaking curfew, and generally disrespecting her rules. She grounded him several times, but nothing seemed to work. Emma mentioned that she had tried therapy for him, but Lucas didn't want to go, and Emma wasn't exactly putting her foot down to make him go. She said she was at her wit's end and needed a break from him, hoping that being away from her might help him reset. At first, I didn't know what to say. I don't have kids of my own, so I wasn't sure what the right answer was. On the one hand, I didn't want to completely shut her down because I get that parenting a teenager can be incredibly difficult. But on the other hand, I've never had a great relationship with Lucas, and I wasn't sure if bringing him into my home would be a good idea, especially considering the strain it might put on my own life. I told Emma I need to think about it and get back to her. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about Lucas. It was about Emma. I've seen how she handles situations with Lucas, and I couldn't help but feel that her lack of structure and boundaries was part of the reason Lucas was acting out. She often made excuses for his bad behavior and would sweep things under the rug when they got difficult. I knew that having Lucas in my home could mean a lot of extra stress, especially if Emma wasn't going to address the real problems with her parenting. A few days later, I called Emma back and told her that I couldn't take Lucas in. I explained that I didn't feel comfortable stepping into a situation where I didn't think the root issues were being addressed, and that I didn't want to enable the cycle of avoidance that I felt she was fostering. I told her that if Lucas wanted to come live with me, he needed to be open to therapy, and that I wasn't going to let him slide with disrespectful behavior or neglecting responsibilities in my home. Emma got upset. She accused me of being selfish and not caring about her or Lucas. She said I was judging her parenting from the outside and that I didn't understand what she was going through. She also mentioned that I had no idea what it was like to raise a child and how difficult it was to balance everything. She told me that Lucas wasn't perfect, but he was her son, and she needed my support, not my judgment. At the time, I was honestly a little taken aback by her response, but I stood firm in my decision. A week went by, and I didn't hear from Emma for a while, but then she called me again. She was angry and crying, saying that Lucas had been kicked out of the house for the night. Apparently, they had gotten into a huge argument about him sneaking out to see his friends after curfew. Emma had told him he was grounded, and when he refused to go to his room, she had told him to leave. She said it wasn't a permanent thing, just a punishment, but Lucas had refused to come back home. He'd been staying at a friend's house, and Emma was now saying that he had nowhere else to go. She asked me if I would take him in, saying that she didn't know how else to deal with him. I have to admit, I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to help out, especially since Emma was clearly at the end of her rope, but part of me felt like this was a consequence of her own making. She had been enabling Lucas's bad behavior for so long, and now it felt like she was trying to shift the responsibility onto me. She'd also never once asked me about how I felt before she made these decisions, and it felt like I was being expected to play the role of the savior. I took a day to think about it, and ended up calling Emma back to tell her that I still couldn't take Lucas in. I told her that I couldn't continue to be the emergency solution for every problem she faced with him. I explained that Lucas needed to learn some hard lessons about responsibility and respect, and I didn't think enabling him further would help. I also told her that I was happy to help find him another living arrangement if she wasn't able to work things out, but I couldn't offer him a place in my home. Emma flipped out. She called me selfish again and said that I was choosing to let her family fall apart because I didn't want to be uncomfortable for a while. She accused me of being a bad brother and said that I was too focused on my own life to help my family. She ended the conversation by telling me that I would regret it and that I wasn't helping anyone by standing by while Lucas was in trouble. Since then, our relationship has been tense. I've been feeling guilty about sticking to my decision, but at the same time, I feel like I'm not in the wrong. I can't keep stepping in every time Emma can't handle something, especially if she's not actively working on fixing the root cause. Now, Emma has been distant, and Lucas hasn't reached out to me either. I don't know if I'm right or wrong here, but I'm feeling like maybe I did the right thing by standing firm. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's son stay with me after he was kicked out of her house. AITA for not attending my sister's wedding after I found out she planned to cut me out of the family. So, this is a bit of a long one, but I need some advice and I really don't know where to turn. I, 28F, have a sister, Mia, 26F, who is getting married next month. I've been close to her for most of my life, but lately, things have taken a strange turn. I've been questioning my relationship with her, and honestly, I'm really hurt by what I found out. I need to know if I'm overreacting or if I'm justified in how I'm feeling. To give you some background, Mia and I grew up very close. We were those sisters who did everything together. We shared secrets, clothes, and even had joint birthday parties until we were in our late teens. We both had similar interests, and we even went to the same college. Our parents always compared us growing up because they thought we were both so smart and talented in different ways. I always felt like I had to live up to her standards, and even though I'm confident now in my own life, it was tough at times. About a year ago, Mia got engaged to her fiancé, Tom. I met Tom a few times, and while I wouldn't say we're best friends, he seems like a decent guy. However, Mia's behavior has been off lately, and things have gotten progressively worse leading up to her wedding. The first issue came when she asked me to be a bridesmaid. I was thrilled at first, but then she dropped some really weird comments that made me uncomfortable. She said that I should lose a few pounds before the wedding so I'd fit in the dress better. She also told me that I needed to tone up for the wedding because the pictures will be everywhere. I'm not perfect, but I'm in decent shape, and I've always felt good about my body, but those comments really hit me hard. When I confronted her about it, she brushed it off and said I was being sensitive. I let it slide, but it lingered. Then, a few months ago, things took a turn when I started hearing things from family members that I wasn't really involved in any of the wedding plans. I hadn't been invited to any of the bridal showers, and I wasn't included in any of the dress shopping trips. Mia seemed to be getting closer to a lot of her friends from high school, people I didn't even know very well, and it felt like she was pulling away from me. It really hurt, but I kept telling myself it was probably just her stressing about the wedding. The real kicker came last week when I found out that Mia had been talking behind my back to our parents and other family members. Apparently, she had been saying that she was going to cut ties with me after the wedding. She said that I was toxic and too much of a burden on her life. I couldn't believe it. I had no idea where this was coming from, and when I confronted her, she didn't even seem to care. She said that I was ruining her vibe and that the wedding is too important for me to be in her life anymore. I was absolutely floored. I had no idea that she felt this way, and I felt so blindsided. After everything we've been through, I didn't even think she could be this cruel. She went on to say that she didn't want me at the wedding anymore, and that I should just stay home. She didn't want me to ruin her special day with my drama. I was heartbroken. I've always supported her, been there for her, and even helped her with a lot of things in the past, but now she was saying that I wasn't welcome. I immediately told her that I wouldn't be attending her wedding. I couldn't go if I was being treated this way. Our parents were torn because they didn't want to pick sides, but they did agree that what Mia was doing wasn't right. They told me I should try to work things out with her, but at this point, I felt like I was done. I was devastated, and I didn't know if I should keep trying or just let it go. Since then, Mia has been blowing up my phone, telling me that I'm being dramatic and that I need to get over it. She's also told me I'm making a huge mistake and that I'll regret not being there for her on the biggest day of her life. She's even gone so far as to say that if I don't come to the wedding, I'm officially out of the family. I'm really struggling with this. I love my sister, but I'm also hurt by her actions. I feel like she's being manipulative and cruel. I don't know if I'm overreacting or if I'm right to feel the way I do. I've been trying to focus on my own life and get some distance, but I'm still so torn. Should I try to salvage the relationship and attend the wedding? Or do I stick to my guns and let her go? AITA for deciding not to attend my sister's wedding after finding out she plans to cut me out of the family? AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay at my house because of their behavior? I, 29F, have a sister, Marie, 32F, who has 3 kids, Ethan, 7, Maya, 5, and Lucas, 3. I'm not particularly close to Marie, but we're civil, and I've always tried to be a supportive sister. We don't see each other much, but we catch up a few times a year at family gatherings. About a month ago, Marie called me in a bit of a panic. She and her husband had planned a weekend getaway to celebrate their 10th anniversary, but their usual babysitter canceled last minute. She asked if I could watch the kids for the weekend. I don't have kids of my own, so I didn't immediately know what to expect. But I thought it would be a good opportunity to bond with my niece and nephews, and since I have a decent-sized house, I figured I could make it work. Marie gave me a quick rundown of their schedules. Ethan and Maya are generally pretty energetic, but manageable. Lucas, she warned, could be a bit of a handful. That last part didn't sound too bad to me, considering I've been around kids before. I agreed, though I was a little nervous. Marie was really relieved and thanked me profusely. The first few hours were fine. Ethan and Maya were excited to be at Annie's house, and they were well behaved. But Lucas immediately started testing boundaries. The moment he entered my house, he ran around screaming, knocking things over, and throwing toys at the walls. I tried to redirect him, but it didn't work. He screamed when I asked him to pick up the toys, then started throwing tantrums. I didn't know what to do because every time I gave him attention, the behavior would escalate. By the end of the first day, I was already exhausted. I had to take a few breaks to calm myself down, but it felt like I was constantly running after him, trying to keep him from breaking things. Ethan and Maya weren't much help. They were happy doing their own thing, but they didn't seem to care that Lucas was wrecking everything around him. I assumed this was a normal kid being a kid thing, but it felt like Lucas had zero respect for the boundaries I set, which I found really draining. The next morning, I tried to establish some rules. I made a schedule for them: breakfast, a few activities, a walk in the park, and then some quiet time. I gave Lucas his favorite toy in an attempt to calm him, but he threw it in my face and then proceeded to cry because it wasn't what he wanted. This went on for a while, me trying to get him to follow a basic routine and him just throwing tantrums. I was at my wit's end. Ethan and Maya weren't the best at helping, but they did play with Lucas a bit when I asked them to. Still, the situation felt chaotic. By the afternoon, Lucas had broken one of my favorite decorative vases, and I had to take deep breaths to avoid losing my temper. I texted Marie to update her on the situation, thinking maybe she could offer some advice or help. She replied, "Oh, don't worry. He's just being his usual self. He'll calm down once he gets used to you." I felt like that wasn't helpful at all. I don't know if she was minimizing the situation or if she just didn't care, but it didn't give me much confidence. At that point, I was already feeling frustrated and overwhelmed. The kids were running around the house, making noise, and I couldn't seem to get Lucas to stop causing chaos. I ended up putting him in timeout for throwing toys at Ethan. I know it's a standard discipline technique, but it only made Lucas scream more. Meanwhile, Ethan was asking when I was going to make lunch, and Maya was in tears because Lucas had knocked over her art supplies. I was just done. It wasn't fun. It wasn't peaceful. I couldn't do it anymore. I called Marie and asked if she could pick up the kids early. I told her that I wasn't able to handle it anymore and that I needed a break. I tried to be polite about it, but I'm sure she could tell I was upset. She sounded shocked and then upset with me. She said, "You can't just give up on them. You knew what you were getting into." I tried to explain that I'd done my best, but her response was something like, "You knew my kids could be a handful. I don't know why you're acting like it's such a big deal." She then said something about how I could always just try harder next time, and that I shouldn't expect things to be perfect. After that, we argued a bit more, and I just ended the conversation feeling really frustrated and kind of hurt. I don't expect kids to be perfect, but I didn't think I was asking for too much by wanting a little help or understanding. Marie later sent a text saying she was disappointed in me and that it wasn't fair to her kids for me to give up on them like that. She mentioned that she would be rethinking our future interactions if I couldn't be more supportive. I feel bad that I couldn't handle it, but I'm also really drained. I don't know how parents do it, honestly. I try to be there for her kids, but it was just too much. Now, I'm questioning if I was in the wrong for not sticking it out. I feel like I tried my best, but maybe I just wasn't cut out for babysitting. I get that she's upset, but at the same time, I don't think I should have to sacrifice my peace of mind just to fulfill a favor. So, AITA for not letting my sister's kids stay at my house. Should I have just pushed through the chaos, or did I have a right to ask for them to leave early? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law stay with us after she trashed our house during a previous visit. So, a bit of context. I, 28F, have been married to my husband, Jake, 30M, for 3 years. Jake has a big family, and we are fairly close with his parents and siblings, especially his sister, Olivia, 32F. But there's a bit of history here, and I'm not sure if I'm overreacting or if I'm justified. Last year, Olivia came to visit us for a few days. At the time, we had a very small, modest house, and our guest room wasn't anything special, but we had it set up nicely for her. We even bought some of her favorite snacks, set up fresh towels, and made sure she was comfortable. My husband and I were excited to have her over. I've always tried to be a good sister-in-law, and we had a nice time hanging out together. But then, things took a weird turn. One night, Olivia went out with some friends and returned pretty late. I wasn't thrilled that she was coming home so late, but I didn't say anything. She's an adult, and she's allowed to do what she wants. The problem started when she came back and drunkenly trashed the guest room. To clarify, she didn't just leave her stuff around or make a mess. She literally ripped the sheets off the bed, broke a couple of picture frames, and knocked over a lamp, all while stumbling around in a drunken haze. When I went in the next morning to see what had happened, it looked like a hurricane had gone through the room. And to top it off, she didn't even apologize. When I asked her what happened, she seemed confused and didn't really remember anything, which only frustrated me more. She did offer to fix it, but didn't seem genuinely sorry, more like she was just offering because she felt obligated. At the time, I didn't push it because I was trying to keep the peace. But honestly, I was really upset. It felt disrespectful, especially since she knew we didn't have a ton of money, and replacing the broken items would be a bit of a financial burden for us. I didn't make a huge deal out of it with Jake, but I did express how upset I was. He was upset too, but he told me he didn't think she meant to cause any harm, and it was just a one-time thing. I still wasn't thrilled, but I let it go and tried to move on. Fast forward to this year. Olivia mentioned that she was planning a trip to our city and asked if she could stay with us. At first, I agreed, but then I remembered what happened last time. I'm not one to hold grudges, but I was really hesitant to have her stay with us again, especially after the way she treated our home. So, I decided to talk to Jake about it. I told him that I didn't feel comfortable having Olivia stay with us again, and I felt like it was only fair to let her know that after the way she acted during her last visit, I wasn't sure I could trust her to be respectful of our space. I was also worried about how she might behave again. I told Jake that I would be more than happy to meet her for lunch or dinner, but that I didn't feel like it was a good idea for her to stay at our house again. Jake got really upset. He said I was being petty and holding a grudge, and that I should let it go. He told me that Olivia was family and that I needed to just move on because it wasn't a big deal. He said he didn't want to create tension between us and his sister, especially since she was already feeling bad about the last time she stayed with us. He also told me that Olivia had apologized, even though it wasn't a sincere one, and that we needed to be more understanding. I felt like I was in a tough spot. On one hand, I wanted to keep the peace, but on the other, I didn't think I was being unreasonable. It didn't feel like a small thing to me. We worked hard for our home, and the idea of her potentially disrespecting it again made me uncomfortable. I didn't want to go through that again. But I also didn't want to be the bad guy who was refusing to let family stay with us. After a lot of back and forth, I eventually told Jake that if he really wanted her to stay, I would be okay with it, but only under the condition that Olivia would cover the cost of replacing the items she broke last time and that she would be respectful while staying here. I also told him I needed her to acknowledge that what she did was wrong and that she would try her best not to repeat her behavior. I thought this was a reasonable compromise. Jake was furious. He said I was being unreasonable, that I couldn't just demand things from her, and that I was being controlling. He said I was ruining his relationship with his sister over something that wasn't even that big of a deal. I felt like I was being fair, but Jake insisted I was making a mountain out of a molehill. Now, there's a lot of tension between us, and we're both really upset. Jake hasn't talked to me much since our argument, and I'm left wondering if I overreacted. I feel like I'm just trying to protect our home and establish some boundaries, but maybe I'm being too hard on Olivia. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law stay with us after her previous behavior? Should I have just let it go and allowed her to stay? Or am I justified in wanting to set boundaries? AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding because she invited my ex? I, 28F, have been best friends with Sarah, 29F, for almost 15 years. We met in high school and, despite our differences, have always been incredibly close. Over the years, we've supported each other through all kinds of life events, family issues, breakups, job losses, and everything in between. She was the maid of honor at my wedding 3 years ago, and I thought our friendship was solid as a rock. However, things took a turn last year when my ex, Mark, 30M, came back into the picture. Mark and I had been together for about 5 years, and our breakup was really painful. It wasn't anything dramatic, but we had grown apart, and when we ended things, it was pretty messy. There was a lot of emotional fallout, and I wasn't in a great place for a long time. We'd still see each other at mutual friend gatherings or family events, but we avoided talking about anything personal. A few months ago, Sarah got engaged to her now fiancé, James, 31M, and of course, I was thrilled for her. She asked me to be her maid of honor, and I was so excited to be a part of her big day. We started planning the wedding and all the details, but then Sarah dropped a bombshell. She told me that Mark had been invited to the wedding. At first, I thought I misunderstood. I asked her to clarify, and she confirmed it. Mark was invited to the wedding because he was a friend of James, her fiancé. She explained that they'd hung out a few times over the past year, and while she understood the situation with me, she felt that inviting him was the right thing to do since James considered him a close friend. I was absolutely blindsided. Mark and I hadn't really talked about each other in a while, but hearing that he would be at Sarah's wedding felt like a punch to the gut. I wasn't sure I could be in the same space as him without all those old feelings flooding back. I told Sarah that I was uncomfortable with the idea and didn't think I could attend if Mark was going to be there. She said she understood, but that she really wanted me there. She said she didn't want the tension to affect her special day, and it was important to her that I be there as her best friend. After that conversation, I started overthinking everything. I tried to be rational about it, but the more I thought about it, the more upset I became. This was supposed to be a celebration of her and James, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I would just be walking into a room where my past was going to be all around me. I talked to a few of my other friends about it, and they were divided. Some said I should just suck it up and be there for Sarah, because it wasn't about me. It was about her big day. Others said I had every right to feel uncomfortable and that I shouldn't be expected to just pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. I eventually told Sarah that I couldn't come to her wedding if Mark was going to be there. I explained that I just didn't think I could handle the emotional stress of being around him, especially in such a meaningful setting. Sarah was hurt, and I could tell she was disappointed. She told me that she thought I'd understand that she was just trying to make the situation work for everyone, and that I was being unreasonable by letting my past relationship get in the way of her happiness. She said I was making it all about me, and that it wasn't fair to put her in this position. I was torn. On one hand, I didn't want to cause any drama, but on the other, I felt like she was asking me to ignore my feelings and just get over it. We've been friends for so long, but I've never felt like she fully understood the weight that this breakup had on me. It wasn't just a casual relationship. It was a huge part of my life, and being in a room with Mark on our wedding day felt like asking me to relive a painful chapter. I ended up standing my ground, and I told Sarah that I wouldn't be attending the wedding if Mark was there. She was visibly upset and said that it felt like I was choosing my past over her, and that maybe this was just the way things had to go. We haven't spoken much since then, and the whole situation has left me feeling guilty and unsure of what the right choice was. I'm still hurt by the breakup, and it feels like Sarah didn't take my feelings into account as much as I thought she would. So, AITA for refusing to go to my best friend's wedding because she invited my ex? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my wedding dress for her wedding, even though I said I would. So, to give some context, my sister, let's call her Amy, and I have always had a pretty complicated relationship. We've had our fair share of disagreements growing up, and while we've made peace in the past few years, things still feel tense sometimes. I've always felt like she's been a bit self-centered and entitled, but I've tried to keep things cordial for the sake of family. However, this latest situation has really thrown me for a loop, and I'm not sure if I'm overreacting. Here's the deal. I got married a few months ago, and the wedding was everything I could have dreamed of. I found a beautiful vintage dress that I absolutely adored. It was one of those dresses that just felt like me when I put it on. It was a custom design, and my mom and I spent months picking out the details and making sure everything was perfect. The whole experience was amazing, and the dress felt like a symbol of that special day. A couple of weeks after the wedding, Amy started talking to me about her own wedding plans. She's been with her fiancé for a while, and they're planning a wedding for next summer. At first, I wasn't really involved in the conversation since it was still early stages, but eventually, she brought up the idea of me letting her borrow my wedding dress. I'll admit, my first reaction was to laugh it off. I thought she was joking, but she was dead serious. She said she loved my dress and that she couldn't find anything quite like it, and she would be honored to wear it on her own big day. At first, I thought maybe she was being sentimental, but then I started feeling uneasy. I told her I wasn't sure about letting anyone else wear it because, honestly, it's a big deal to me. My wedding dress was such a personal part of my wedding day, and I wanted to keep it as my own. But Amy didn't take no for an answer. She kept pushing, saying things like it's just a dress, and we're sisters, it'll be meaningful. She even offered to pay for cleaning and alterations, which felt a little like she was trying to buy my consent. I didn't feel comfortable with it, and I told her again that it wasn't something I wanted to share. It wasn't just about the dress, it was about my memories, and I didn't want them to be overshadowed by her wedding. At this point, she started getting upset. She said I was being selfish and that I was taking away something that could have been a special connection between us. She accused me of not caring about her wedding, and that stung. I do care about her wedding, and I want her to have an amazing day, but this felt like something I couldn't compromise on. It wasn't about not supporting her, it was about wanting to keep something meaningful to myself. She went on to tell other family members about it, and now there's this whole drama brewing. My mom, who has always been the peacekeeper, called me to tell me that I should just let Amy wear the dress. It's not a big deal. She told me it would mean the world to Amy, and that I should be the bigger person and make this concession. My dad, however, is on my side and thinks it's completely unreasonable for Amy to expect to wear my dress, so at least I have some support there. The thing is, I do understand why she'd want to wear it. She's always been a little insecure about her own sense of style, and I get the impression that she's looking for validation or approval. But at the same time, I can't shake the feeling that she's crossing a boundary by asking me for something that feels so personal. I just don't think I can let her wear it, no matter how much she wants to. Now, there's this rift in the family. My aunts and uncles have weighed in, and most of them think I'm being a bit unreasonable and should just let Amy have a dress. My friends are split. Some say I'm totally within my rights, while others think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm overreacting. I've been known to be a bit stubborn at times, and I do want to maintain family harmony. But at the same time, I feel like my feelings and memories are valid too. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister wear my wedding dress. AITA for taking my sister's place at a family wedding after she bailed at the last minute. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Liz, 24F. Our relationship has always been kind of strained, but we've gotten along fine in recent years. We've always had a bit of rivalry growing up, but nothing that would warrant any huge conflicts. We're different people with different interests, and we've learned to coexist, if not necessarily bond. Our family is pretty close-knit, but when it comes to certain events, Liz has this habit of making everything about her. She's never really been great at managing responsibilities and has a tendency to back out of things last minute. It's been a running joke in the family that Liz always has an excuse to bail. So when it came time for my cousin's wedding last month, I wasn't surprised when Liz made a big deal about being the maid of honor and then bailed at the last minute. To give you some context, my cousin, Emma, and I are really close. We grew up together, and I was beyond excited for her wedding. She asked Liz to be her maid of honor about a year ago, which Liz accepted without hesitation. But about 2 weeks before the wedding, Liz started getting cold feet. She told Emma that she couldn't be maid of honor anymore due to personal reasons. Emma, who was already stressed with the wedding preparations, was obviously upset. Liz gave her some vague excuse about needing time to focus on herself and not being able to deal with the pressure. Emma was hurt, but didn't want to push her, so she just accepted it. However, Liz's excuse fell off. She had been acting a bit distant lately, and when I asked her about it, she kept changing the subject. As the wedding drew closer, Emma asked if I would step in for Liz since the maid of honor position still needed to be filled. At first, I wasn't sure. I wasn't trying to steal the spotlight or make things weird, but Emma was asking me because she trusted me, and Liz had already given up her role. So after some thought, I agreed to step in. Liz was still kind of MIA and didn't seem to care much about the wedding anymore. She barely even called Emma to apologize for backing out. The day of the wedding came, and I was in full maid of honor mode, helping with last-minute preparations, managing the bridal party, and making sure everything went smoothly. Everything was perfect. The ceremony was beautiful, and the reception was a blast. I had a great time celebrating Emma's big day, and I felt like I was genuinely contributing to making the wedding day special for her. But, of course, that's when Liz decided to make an appearance. About halfway through the reception, Liz showed up looking a bit disheveled. She wasn't in a fancy dress or anything like that. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt with her hair in a messy ponytail. She walked straight up to me and started asking me why I was playing dress up and acting like the center of attention. I was completely thrown off guard. I hadn't seen her in days, and she didn't even acknowledge the fact that I had stepped in to help Emma when she bailed. At first, I tried to stay calm and explain that I was there for Emma and was just helping out. I wasn't trying to steal Liz's spotlight or cause drama, but Liz was having none of it. She started making passive-aggressive remarks about how I was trying too hard and how Emma was only using me because she didn't want to deal with Liz's drama. She kept saying that she was the one who was supposed to be the maid of honor, and I was just pretending to be someone important. I was stunned by her behavior, especially given the fact that she was the one who had bailed in the first place. I don't know if it was the stress of the wedding or just Liz being Liz, but I was honestly fed up. The whole situation felt incredibly unfair to me. Here I was, helping out when no one else would, and Liz was acting like I had wronged her. I pulled her aside and told her that if she had a problem with me stepping in as maid of honor, then she should have thought about that before dropping out. I reminded her that Emma was heartbroken and needed someone reliable. I wasn't going to apologize for being there for her when Liz couldn't be. Liz's face turned red, and she started getting defensive, saying that I was taking over her role and that I was ruining her moment. At that point, I had had enough. I told her that she needed to stop acting like the world revolved around her and that she should stop causing drama at a wedding that wasn't even about her. I said that she had no right to be mad at me when I was just trying to help out. Liz looked like she was about to cry, but she quickly turned and left the reception, muttering something about how everyone always sides with me. The whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't want to cause drama at Emma's wedding, but I also felt like I couldn't just let Liz walk all over me anymore. She's always had a way of making everything about herself, and I was tired of it. I tried to reach out to her the next day to see if we could talk things over, but she didn't respond. Now, our family is divided. Some of them think I did the right thing by stepping in for Liz, while others think I should have stayed out of it and let Liz figure out her own problems. Emma is fine with what I did. She's grateful, and we've talked about it since, but Liz is still upset. So, AITA for stepping in and taking Liz's place at the wedding? Did I overstep, or was I justified in helping out? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law stay at our house after she trashed my wedding? I, 29F, have been married to my husband, Jason, 32M, for 3 years now. We had a small wedding, just family and a few close friends, at a lovely vineyard in our town. It was a beautiful day. Everything went according to plan, and I couldn't have been happier with how everything turned out. That is, until my sister-in-law, Sarah, 35F, decided to make the day about her. Sarah has always been a bit, well, extra. She likes to be the center of attention, and she has a way of making everything about her, even when it's not. This was particularly evident at our wedding. From the moment she arrived, she was throwing shade at the venue, saying it wasn't fancy enough, and making passive-aggressive remarks about the food and the decorations. At first, I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she was just having an off day. But as the night went on, it became clear that she was intentionally trying to cause drama. During the ceremony, she kept whispering to her husband, my brother-in-law, Mark, about how uncomfortable she was and how cheap the whole thing felt. I heard her and was pretty upset, but I figured it wasn't worth confronting her during the ceremony. The real trouble started during the reception. At the reception, Sarah started drinking heavily. I didn't mind people having a drink or two, but she was getting loud and obnoxious. She kept interrupting speeches, making sarcastic comments about our choice of music, and loudly criticizing our wedding cake. It was honestly embarrassing, especially because Jason's family was sitting at the same table, and I could see how uncomfortable they were getting. Then came the part that really broke me. During the dance floor portion of the evening, Sarah decided to take over the DJ's microphone. She grabbed it from him, announced that this wedding needs some life, and proceeded to play her own playlist over ours. She chose the most random and offbeat songs, and while some people were laughing along with her, it just felt like she was hijacking our special day for her own amusement. Jason and I tried to let it slide, but at some point, I reached my breaking point. I walked over to Sarah, asked her to stop, and told her that it was our wedding and we would appreciate it if she could respect the fact that we had planned everything. She rolled her eyes and gave me a condescending laugh before saying, "Oh, lighten up. It's just a wedding. You act like it's the last day of your life." I was honestly floored by how dismissive she was. The final straw came after the wedding when Sarah took to social media to post a series of passive-aggressive comments about her day. She posted a picture of our wedding cake and captioned it, "When you're too cheap to get a real cake but still want to pretend it's fancy." She also posted a video of her takeover of the DJ, captioning it, "Who needs a boring wedding playlist when you have me?" The post went semi-viral among our friends and family, and a few people sent me screenshots of it, asking if I was okay. I was devastated. Sarah had turned our special day into something that people were mocking online. I tried to talk to her about it, but she brushed me off and said I was being too sensitive. I felt humiliated and hurt, and it felt like she didn't care at all about how her actions were affecting me. She didn't apologize, and frankly, I don't think she ever would. A few months ago, Jason's family planned a get-together for the holidays, and Sarah called us to ask if she and her family could stay at our house for the weekend. Jason was on board right away, but I was hesitant. I didn't want her staying at our place, especially after what had happened at the wedding. I told Jason that I didn't feel comfortable having her in our home after what she did, and that I needed space from her. Jason said I was overreacting and that it was just a one-time thing. But for me, it wasn't just one incident. It was a pattern of behavior where she always tried to overshadow me and make things about her. I explained my feelings to Jason, but he seemed to think I was being unfair. Eventually, I told him that if Sarah stayed with us, I would be uncomfortable and that I didn't want her in our home. He was hurt, and I could tell he didn't fully understand why this bothered me so much. He said that it wasn't worth causing drama over and that I should just get over it for the sake of family harmony. But I stuck to my guns, and I told him that if Sarah stayed, I would not be participating in the family get-together. Jason ended up telling his family about my stance, and it caused a huge rift. His parents think I'm being unreasonable, and my in-laws have started calling me too controlling and unforgiving. Sarah, of course, has made it into a huge drama, telling everyone that I'm ruining family relationships because I can't let go of something that happened 3 years ago. Now, my husband is caught in the middle, and we've been fighting about it. He's angry that I won't make an effort to get along with his family, and he thinks I'm making an issue out of something small. But I really feel like it wasn't just a one-time thing. I can't just pretend that everything is fine when she disrespected me on what should have been the happiest day of my life. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law stay at our house after everything that happened. I just don't think I can ever get past the way she treated me, and I don't want to put myself in that situation again. AITA for refusing to give up my vacation for my husband's work trip, even though it's important for his career. So here's the deal. I, 28F, have been married to my husband, Jake, 30M, for 4 years now. He's a great guy, but recently he's been getting more and more absorbed in his work. I'm an elementary school teacher, and my schedule is pretty regular, but Jake's job in tech has him traveling constantly. It's been like this since we first met, but lately it's been even worse. He often goes on business trips with very little notice, and sometimes I barely see him for a week at a time. We've talked about this a few times, and while he acknowledges that can be tough on me, he always says it's just the nature of the job. I get it, I really do. I know he's trying to advance his career, and I'm supportive of that. But I have my own life and needs too. For the past 6 months, I've been looking forward to a much-needed vacation. I haven't had a proper break in almost 2 years. Teaching can be stressful, and I just wanted to get away, recharge, and spend some quality time with my husband. It's not like we get a lot of time together, so this trip was supposed to be our chance to reconnect. I'd saved up for this trip, and we booked it months ago, tickets to a tropical destination, an all-inclusive resort. We planned to go for a full week, and I was beyond excited. Jake even agreed that it would be a great opportunity for us to relax and get away from everything. About 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave, Jake came to me with some news. He told me that his company was sending him on a last-minute business trip to a different city for an important client meeting. He said it was a big opportunity for him, and it was going to make a huge difference for his career trajectory. He said he could possibly reschedule the trip, but it would be a huge hassle, and the timing was tricky. If he canceled, it could risk the deal, and he wasn't sure how it would look to his superiors. At first, I was understanding. I know how important his job is to him, and I didn't want to be the one to hold him back. But when I pointed out that we already had the vacation planned, he seemed to think it was just an afterthought. He suggested that I go on the trip alone and just enjoy it for both of us, and that he would make it up to me later. I told him that this wasn't just a vacation for me. It was our time together, and I wasn't going to go alone. I didn't want to be by myself, and honestly, I didn't want to feel like I was just second to his job all the time. Jake got upset when I stood firm on the matter. He said I was being unreasonable, that this was an important work trip that could boost his career and secure his future. He also pointed out that he's been making sacrifices for our relationship, and now it was my turn to be understanding. He tried to guilt-trip me, saying that if I really loved him, I'd support him and let him go, and we could figure out another time for the vacation. I honestly didn't know how to handle it first. I felt guilty because I didn't want to hold him back, but I also felt hurt. I had been looking forward to this vacation for so long, and I was feeling like I was always playing second fiddle to his career. In the end, I told him that I wasn't going to cancel our vacation. I felt like it was unfair for him to expect me to drop everything just because his work needed him. I also reminded him that we'd had this plan for months, and I'd already made all the arrangements. After a few more back and forths, Jake said he was going on the work trip regardless, and that he'd try to make it up to me later. I felt frustrated and honestly pretty sad. It was clear that he wasn't going to prioritize our relationship over his career. But I stuck to my decision. I went on the vacation without him. While I was at the resort, Jake kept texting and calling me. He was angry, but also seemed to want me to have fun without him. He kept saying things like, "I hope you're enjoying it, but I'll be working hard to make it up to you." I was getting mixed messages. Part of me was enjoying the time away, but the other part of me felt guilty. I knew he was stressed, and I hated the idea that I was on vacation while he was working and upset. When I got back home, things were awkward. Jake was still distant, and he kept saying things like, "It must have been nice to get away without all the work pressure, and I hope you didn't enjoy it too much without me." He's now upset that I didn't cancel my trip and go with him. He's accusing me of not supporting him and not understanding the sacrifices he makes for his career. I've tried explaining how important this trip was to me, but he doesn't seem to get it. He says I'm being selfish for wanting him to put the vacation above his job, even though it was something we've been planning together for months. So, am I the asshole here? I get that his career is important, but I feel like my own needs and happiness matter too. Should I have just gone along with his work trip plans? Or was I right to stick to our original vacation? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law and her kids stay with us after she made a scene at our house. So I, 32F, have been married to my husband, Jake, 35M, for 6 years. We have 2 young kids, 5 and 3, and we live in a small 3-bedroom house in a nice suburban neighborhood. We both work full-time, and while we don't make a fortune, we're comfortable enough to not worry too much about bills or expenses. Jake has a sister, Rachel, 38F, who is, well, let's just say she's not the easiest person to get along with. She's always been kind of high maintenance and entitled, but I've always tried to be respectful and civil. She's married with 3 kids, Noah, 10, Ella, 7, and Ben, 4. They've had some financial struggles in the past, mostly due to Rachel's tendency to make poor decisions and rely on her husband, Greg, 41M, who's not exactly the most reliable guy either. Despite that, Rachel's always been very proud and has never outright asked for help from us, though she often hints at it. A few weeks ago, I got a call from Rachel saying she and her family had run into a temporary housing issue. Her family was evicted from their apartment. A long story, but it had to do with her not paying rent for months despite multiple warnings, and they needed somewhere to stay for a couple of weeks. She asked if they could crash with us while they sorted things out. Jake and I discussed it, and we agreed to let them stay with us, even though we knew it would be tight. We figured it was a short-term thing, and we could make it work. We told Rachel that she and her family could stay in the guest room, and the kids could sleep in the living room on air mattresses. It wouldn't be ideal, but we figured we could manage for a few weeks. Rachel was grateful at first, but things started to go south pretty quickly. The first issue was that Rachel seemed to think she could just take over the house. She'd constantly rearrange things, move stuff around, and complain about how our furniture was too old or too cheap for her tastes. She'd bring up how much she hated our house's layout and suggest ways to improve it, as if we had the money for a remodel. Jake and I both tried to be patient, but it was really starting to feel like she was overstaying her welcome. Then came the kids. Don't get me wrong, I love kids, but Rachel's kids are a handful. Noah, the oldest, was constantly running around, yelling, and getting into things he wasn't supposed to. Ella was a sweet girl, but she was always in my personal space and would go through my things without asking. Ben, the youngest, was constantly crying or throwing tantrums. While my own kids are young, they've always been pretty well behaved. Rachel, however, never seemed to discipline her kids. She'd just yell at them and then give them whatever they wanted to calm them down. This was driving me insane. The next major issue was food. Rachel and her kids ate everything in sight. We buy groceries for the week, and within a day or two, half of it would be gone. It wasn't just snacks or easy-to-grab things. They were eating full meals. I'd make dinner for my family, and Rachel would ask if she could take some for lunch the next day, even though she hadn't offered to contribute anything. She'd also leave her kids with us to watch while she went out with Greg. She claimed it was important that she get some time to herself since she had been stressed out and needed a break. I get that, but it started feeling like we were babysitting her kids for free. The tipping point came last weekend. I had planned a small family dinner with my in-laws. Jake's parents were coming over, and we were going to have a nice, quiet evening with some homemade food. Rachel, however, decided to invite some of her friends over without asking us. She texted me a few hours before the dinner, saying, "Hey, I'm having a few people over tonight. Hope that's okay." I was livid. We had already planned our evening, and I hadn't agreed to hosting anyone other than our immediate family. I told Rachel that it wasn't a good time, and she flipped. She started texting me about how we owed her for letting her stay with us, and that it was unfair to expect her to just hide in a corner while we had company. She kept saying how hard things had been for her, that she needed support from her family. Jake and I had a huge argument over it. He thought I was being too strict and should just let it go, but I felt like I had been more than accommodating. It wasn't just about the dinner. It was about the total lack of respect for our space and boundaries. We compromised by saying she could have her friends over, but they'd have to be gone by 8 p.m. so we could still have our family time. The night went horribly. Rachel and her friends turned up with a ton of food and alcohol, and the noise was unbearable. By 8 p.m., I politely asked them to leave so we could have our family dinner, and Rachel lost it. She started yelling at me in front of everyone, calling me selfish and accusing me of being ungrateful for letting them stay in the first place. She said I was treating her like a burden when all she needed was some family support. Her friends sided with her, and it turned into a huge scene. Jake tried to calm things down, but Rachel was having none of it. At that point, I told her that I couldn't continue to let her stay with us under these conditions and that she needed to figure something else out. Rachel stormed off with her kids, and I haven't heard from her since. Jake is upset with me, saying I overreacted and could have handled it better. My in-laws are split. Some agree with me, while others think I should have been more understanding given her situation. Now I'm wondering if I was too harsh. I know she's going through a tough time, but I feel like I've been more than generous. AITA for refusing to let them stay anymore. AITA for not wanting my sister to move in with me after she broke my trust multiple times. I, 28F, am in a situation that's making me feel like the world is split into two camps. Those who think I'm being unreasonable, and those who are on my side. My sister, Emily, 25F, is asking me to let her move in with me, and I really don't want to. Some of my friends and family think I'm being selfish, but I feel like they're ignoring the history between us. I need an outside perspective to see if I'm out of line or if I'm justified. Here's the backstory. Emily and I have had a complicated relationship for years. We grew up in a pretty strict household. Our parents were always tough on us, but Emily has always pushed boundaries. She's the type who can't seem to follow rules or respect anyone else's space. I, on the other hand, am much more of a rule follower. I graduated college, got a stable job, and generally keep things together. Emily, on the other hand, has always struggled with holding down a job or being financially responsible. I used to try and help her out, letting her borrow money, giving her advice, even trying to find her a job or connect her with people. But every time I did, she'd either ignore me or do something that broke my trust. The most notable example of this happened about 3 years ago. She asked to borrow $2,000 to pay for a few months' rent after she lost her job. I didn't hesitate to help, even though it was a huge amount of money for me at the time. She promised she'd pay me back within a few months. Well, fast forward to a year later, and not only had she not paid me back, she'd completely ghosted me when I tried to check in on it. I was hurt, angry, and confused. When I finally confronted her, she said she had been struggling with mental health issues and had spent all the money on therapy and things that helped her get through it. I wanted to be understanding, but I felt betrayed because she didn't even communicate with me about it. To make matters worse, she started borrowing money from other family members and just started to completely avoid me. I stopped giving her money after that. She didn't like it, of course, and that caused a lot of tension between us. I eventually started setting stronger boundaries, but the relationship became strained. I still loved her, of course, but it was hard to feel like I could trust her. Fast forward to the present day. Emily has recently reached out to me, saying that she's fallen on hard times again. She got into a bad breakup, lost her job, and is dealing with some personal issues. She's been living in a friend's spare room, but the friend is moving soon, and she needs a place to stay. She asked if she could move in with me for a few months until she gets back on her feet. My gut reaction was no. The last time I let her stay with me, she left my apartment a mess, borrowed things without asking, and was generally disrespectful in my space. While I politely told her that I wasn't comfortable with her moving in, she started crying and saying that she's changed, that she needs a family member right now, and that she's not asking for money, just a place to stay while she gets things sorted. She said she wouldn't ask for anything else, just a roof over her head. But I can't shake the feeling that it's going to be like last time. She'll promise she won't mess things up, but then won't follow through. I feel like I've put in the emotional work and effort to make my life stable, and I'm scared that having her in my space will throw me off. I can't help but feel like I'm walking on eggshells every time she's involved in my life. Plus, I've worked hard to make my apartment a sanctuary, and I really don't want to risk it becoming chaotic again. When I told her I wasn't comfortable with her staying, she accused me of being selfish and not caring about family. My mom and other relatives have been texting me, saying I should just help her out, that she's in a tough spot, and that I should be there for her like family is supposed to be. But on the flip side, some of my close friends think I should set the boundary, since it's not my job to rescue her, and that it's okay to protect my mental health and space. Now, I'm feeling like I'm in the middle of a moral dilemma. I've helped Emily before, but I've also been burned by her. I want to be supportive, but I don't know if I can handle the same stress she's caused me in the past. I'm scared that if I let her in, she'll just take advantage of me again. So, AITA for not wanting my sister to move in with me after everything that's happened in the past. Should I be more understanding, or is it okay to prioritize my own mental health and space? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her last-minute demand about my outfit? I, 30F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Clara, 28F. Growing up, we were close in our early years, but as we got older, things started to shift. Clara always had a way of dominating everything, from family gatherings to vacations, and it often felt like my opinion didn't matter. I was the quiet, independent one, and she was the charismatic center of attention. I don't think I ever really fit in her world, but I've tried to be supportive whenever she needed me. A few months ago, Clara announced her engagement to her fiancé, Evan, and started planning her wedding. I wasn't shocked by the news. She had been in a long-term relationship with him, and they always seemed happy. I'll admit, I was a little anxious about the whole wedding process. Clara had already been known to be somewhat controlling and perfectionist, so I had low expectations for how easy this would be. Things were going smoothly, or so I thought, until about 2 weeks before the wedding. That's when the drama began. Clara texted me late one evening, asking if I had picked out my dress yet. I hadn't even started looking for one. I'm not one to splurge on clothing, especially when it's just for an event I'm already a bit uncomfortable with. So, I told her that I hadn't found anything yet, but was planning to go shopping the next day. Her response was immediate and blunt. Don't wear white, cream, or ivory. I know how you are about being unique with your style, but I'm making it very clear now, no offbeat, unusual dresses. I don't want you to steal attention from me. I was stunned. I hadn't even thought about wearing anything other than the usual appropriate wedding attire. But Clara's comment rubbed me the wrong way. It wasn't the first time she had made these kinds of remarks to me. She had always been the queen bee, and I was just supposed to play my part in her perfect little world. I was starting to feel like this wedding was going to be more about controlling the narrative than celebrating love. But it didn't end there. The next day, Clara texted again, saying she needed to approve the dress I picked out before I bought it. At first, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. I just want everything to be perfect, and I know you like to be edgy, but this is my day. You'll be fine. Just pick something nice and simple, okay? At this point, I felt like I was being micromanaged. I didn't want to be difficult, but I also didn't want to be a pawn in her wedding drama. I didn't even want to go to the wedding anymore. I was starting to dread it. I had already planned to wear a simple navy blue dress I had worn to a few other events. Modest, respectful, and understated. But Clara's request to approve it beforehand felt suffocating. I had to admit, I was also a little hurt. Why couldn't she just let me be myself for once? Why was my presence at her wedding only about fitting into her rigid vision? I decided to confront her about it. The conversation went like this. Me, "Hey Clara, I've been thinking about the dress situation. I really don't understand why you want to approve it. I'm just trying to pick something nice. Why are you making this so complicated?" "Clara, I'm not trying to make it complicated. It's just that this wedding is really important to me, and I don't want anything to distract from it. I know you're my sister, but you tend to do your own thing, and it could take the spotlight off of me." Me, I'm not trying to steal the spotlight. I just want to be there for you and celebrate. But I don't want to be treated like a prop either. Clara, I'm not treating you like a prop. I just want everything to be perfect. Please, I need you to understand that. It felt like a brick wall. She wasn't hearing me. So I said, "Clara, I don't think I'm going to be able to go to the wedding if it's going to be like this. I'm not going to let you dictate every detail of my appearance and behavior." She didn't respond right away, but about an hour later, I got a call from my mom. "Mom, what's going on with you and Clara? She's really upset. You're making this about you instead of her. It's her wedding, for God's sake. She's only asking you to be respectful." I tried to explain my side again. I told my mom that I wasn't trying to make it about me, but Clara was treating me like I wasn't allowed to have my own preferences. But my mom was insistent. "You need to just let it go. You're being unreasonable. This is important to Clara." The next few days were tense. Clara sent me multiple texts, all of which were basically her pleading for me to attend, but with the same underlying tone. "Don't make this difficult for me." I kept saying no. Finally, Clara gave me an ultimatum. Either I wear what she wanted, or I wasn't welcome at the wedding at all. She made it clear that if I didn't fall in line, I shouldn't even bother showing up. I had enough. I texted her back, "If you really can't see how controlling you're being, then I guess we're done here. I'm not going to your wedding." That was the last time we spoke about it before the wedding. I didn't attend. I didn't even send a gift. I figured it would be better for both of us if I stayed away. But of course, I've been getting bombarded with messages from my family ever since. They all think I'm overreacting and that I should have just sucked it up and gone. Clara has been telling everyone that I ruined her special day and that she can't believe I made it all about myself. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she demanded I follow her strict dress code and constantly micromanaged me. I feel like I'm the one who was being disrespected, but maybe I overreacted. Everyone else seems to think I'm being unreasonable. What do you think?